Okay, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. My name's Clarke Ching. I'm coming to you all the way from New Zealand. Today, I'm going to talk to you about what I think, and probably in Agile land, what your customers think is probably one of the biggest problems. And it's one of those things we haven't fixed. And at the end of it, I'm going to show you how to try and fix it. It's easier than than you might think. And it's a different way to approach it than what most people do. So it's the customer, they're at the front of your process and they're not engaged. And you wish you had more time with them, more input, but you can't get more time because they're really busy. So I'm going to talk about that. It's based on my expertise in the theory of constraints. I'm going to just show you just a map of New Zealand, because this is where I'm coming to you from at the moment. And at 7:30 at night, and there's a map of the world, and for some reason they don't have New Zealand on it, which is one of those little problems that we see quite often over here. And actually literally at the moment you can't come in here, we can't go out, so it's probably actually quite prophetic, this map. Anyway, coming to you from New Zealand, Clarke Ching, and I'm going to talk to you about the theory of constraints, which, if you think about it, the three most boring words in the world: theory of and constraints. We're just going to think about it as a way of finding bottlenecks in your process and going faster. Because if you can find the bottleneck in your process, you go faster. If you try and improve everything else, you don't go faster. Simple as that. So I've written a few books here. I'm not going to dwell on them. You probably heard of this one, maybe, Rolling Rocks Downhill. This has been out for a while. It's a business novel, and it's an unusual thing about a business novel, which is that people actually enjoy reading it. But the book I'm most famous for, if famous is the right word, is the Bottleneck Rules. And just while you're here, see share.toc.guide at the top there. You go to that, that's a URL, and you can grab a free copy of it. It's a very easy book to read. It's been featured in the Guardian newspaper, the Spectator magazine, and just for a few days last year, it was the #2 best-selling leadership book on Amazon.com. So if I die now, I can die happy. I'll try not to do it right now, though. Okay, so go grab a free copy, share.toc.guide. There's no strings attached there. Just go grab a free copy. It'll hopefully make a big difference to your life. Right. So I'm going to tell this like a bit of a story, except it's not a very good story because it's not got lots of characters and stuff. It's just the structure of a story. So, you know, when you tell a story, you've got a hero, right? So the hero in this can be you, if you like. It's not me. I'm not the hero there. I'm kind of like the guide. And when you go back to work tomorrow, if you're back to work, or when you dial in and meet all your friends, you can be in your own head the hero, but effectively the guide for your team to help them figure out how they can get their agile customer fully engaged. And this is a capacity problem. It's not a motivation problem usually. It's not a skill problem. It's a capacity problem. So that's what we're going to look at, capacity. But let's first look at some of the consequences of having a disengaged customer. So the first thing you'll notice inside your team is that the team suffers lots and lots of delays. It's really frustrating. You want to get some input, some direction, some advice from the customer. They're too busy, you can't see them till next Thursday. So what do you do? What do? You're going to start something else. You multitask, you dilute your effort, and you have a lot of things on the go just to keep yourself busy. And although maybe not everyone understands why WIP is actually bad, but it is. Having lots of it just creates sludge and nothing gets finished. Lots of things get started, not a lot of things get finished. So if you have delays because you can't get input from the most important input person in your in your development process, then you're going to have a lot of WIP. Things are going to go really, really slowly. And when you do get time with the customer, you get there, you're chatting with your customer, the meetings are going to have so much stuff built up, so many questions that they're going to be rushed. And if they're rushed, there's probably going to be shortcuts made, quick decisions, maybe that are bad decisions, whatever it is, they're not going to be well thought out decisions, and you're probably going to end up almost certainly with a lot of garbage in, garbage out. Old term GIGO, G-I-G-O, garbage in, garbage out, and that's going to cause you either to ship an inferior product, or you're going to have a lot of rework, which will keep a lot of people busy and waste a lot of time. Now, sometimes if you've got a team there, imagine them like a nest of hungry birdies. They're sitting going, feed us, mum and dad, feed us, mum and dad. And the customer who's hearing this, feed us, feed us, feed us. They've got a team of people there and they're really busy. So what they're going to do is go, look at my backlog. I've got stuff I could feed them, but that top one, which is actually quite important, is going to take a lot of work from me, and I don't have a lot of time. But it's only going to give them 2 weeks worth of work. Oh, they're going to look down their list and look down their list until they find something that's high effort for the development part of the team, and lower value, and they're going to feed it in just to keep the team busy. And you may think this doesn't happen, but it's happening. It happens all over the place, and it's probably happening in your workplace right now, but you probably can't see it because everyone's so busy doing the rework above that it's hidden. Okay, so this is happening. Go back to work tomorrow or this afternoon and go hunting for it. You'll find that the teams are being kept busy working on lower value, higher effort work and rework. This doesn't sound very healthy, but because what it means is that stuff takes a long time to deliver. And then ironically, the person who's actually slowing it down, causing this rework, causing all of this WIP to build up, the customer, they complain, they go, oh, wow, give this stuff to the team. They take ages. I thought you agile guys are supposed to be quick. So they complain, and they complain, and they complain. And then the team, who have been working really, really hard, are gutted, and they get really kind of frustrated and angry. And again, go have a look at this. It's probably happening, but it's probably not noticeable because you're also busy doing all that stuff there. Right. Okay, this sucks, and we're going to figure out something to do about it. The first thing that most people do, most teams, is they look at the customer who is busy saying that they're sluggish, even though clearly it's their fault, and they identify them as the villain. Now, what I would like you to do is when you get back to work and you're looking around going, wow, it would be so much better if we had more time from our customer. Don't think of them as the villain, right? You're the guide, remember? Yeah, you're the guide. You need to help point out what the real villain is. And unfortunately, this is Yoda speak, so it's a bit sort of round backwards. Imagine Yoda saying, at the front of your system is your system's bottleneck. And what Yoda's actually saying is that your customer, who sits at the front of your development process, is the bottleneck, the slowest point, right? It's the worst place to have a bottleneck anywhere, right? And then he'll say, look, but they are the bottleneck, but you're not managing them like they're the bottleneck because you think they're outside the system. You're treating them like a customer would be if they're an external company or an external business, but they're not. They're inside your system. They're your internal customer. So they're part of the team and they're the bottleneck. So we have to manage them, right? Now, I'm going to give you a quick lesson here in Bottleneck Management 101. This is such a fascinating subject. I find it fascinating. You find it really interesting. I'm going to tell you a joke in just one moment, and I will point out where the funny bit is, just in case you don't see it. But if you don't know how to manage bottlenecks, let me tell you this. You've already got a bottleneck, and it's not being managed. It's managing you. So I'm going to show you how to spot bottlenecks now, how to find them out there in the wild, in your workplace, in your traffic system, in your hospital, in your coffee shop, wherever you like. They are everywhere. So there's a bottleneck there on the screen. See that guy there? That's a bottle, has a neck. If you take that wine bottle, turn it over, the wine will come out, but it will flow out at the rate that's limited by the thickness of the bottleneck. If it didn't have a neck on it, it would be called a jar, and the liquid would come out really, really quickly. So the bottleneck literally is the neck on a bottle, and it limits the flow of the liquid coming out of it. Okay, we're all about flow, right? So we want to speed up the flow. Now, this here is a beautiful hot sauce made here in New Zealand, hot chili sauce. And you see the neck on that, that's quite thick looking, but inside it's actually very, very, very narrow. Really narrow neck, and you want that bottleneck to be deliberately narrow, because when you pour out the hot sauce, you want it to drip out slowly. Now, I have been told that if you swap these two around and you put the wine in the hot sauce bottle and the hot sauce bottle, and the hot sauce in the wine bottle, when you poured out the hot sauce, of course, it would ruin your breakfast, ruin your dinner, because it would pour out, there'd be too much of it. So the bottleneck is a good thing. And likewise, you don't want the bottleneck to be too small, because you had wine coming out of the hot sauce thing with that narrow, tiny neck. Then you go shake like this, the wine would just drip out and you'd risk dying of sobriety, which I've heard is a terrible way to go. But that wasn't the joke, by the way. Let me tell you the joke. So just imagine you've walked up to a team like this and they've got a board like this. You can see the bottleneck already. It's testing. You can see it because see that circle there, that's just a bunch of WIP waiting to be worked on. So it's just sitting there in a queue waiting to be worked on. Imagine you go into the emergency room in a hospital and there's a big queue of people waiting to be seen. It's just like that. It's just a big long queue, and the only way to go faster is to speed up testing. Not to speed up programming, not to do your analysis faster, is to look as a team and figure out how to do testing. But I can see that because I'm over 25 years finding bottlenecks. You were to do it easy, shortly, but just let me tell you this joke, because this is the joke that I share with just about everyone who will listen. Okay, so this is a joke. I've told it hundreds, possibly thousands of times over the years, and it started as an email joke way back when you sent jokes as emails, and it's an imagined conversation from the Cheers TV program that never actually happened in the show. Okay, but I remember, I'll tell you what the funny bit is. So Cliff, who's an old character in the thing, comes and he says to his friend, well, you see, Norm, it's like this. A herd of buffalo, it means bison, can only move as quickly as the slowest buffalo. See, like this. Hope you like my animation. It took me about 3 weeks, right? So the slowest buffalo, they stay at the back of the herd, and the faster buffalo, they run in front, but at the slowest speed. Because if they didn't, they would split apart. You know, makes sense? Like this. There they are, they're split apart. And when they're split apart, they'd be more prone to being attacked by wolves and stuff from all angles. And I think through the power of animation, there goes one there goes another one there. Gone. So these herds that were split apart were actually less safe, so it was more dangerous for them. So evolution favored the herds that didn't spread apart like this. So here we go again, they're back together. And when these tightly packed herds were hunted down by buffalo, the wolves killed the slowest and the weakest ones. And where were they? They were the guys at the back, of course, and that made the remaining herd stronger and faster. So sorry, grandma's just been eaten by a wolf, but suddenly the whole buffalo herd can actually now run faster because they're no longer having to run at her slower speed. Okay, so all this makes sense. It may not actually be factually true, but it's not the point. We get into the joke. You're seeing here the idea of WIP being limited by held together and a bottleneck determining the speed that the team runs at there, the guy at the back. So here's the joke bit, right? Always point this out just in case no one knows. And Cliff goes on, he says, in much the same way, the human brain can only operate as quickly as the slowest brain cells. That may or may not be scientifically true. Now, as we know, excessive intake of alcohol kills off brain cells, but naturally, who's it going to attack? It's going to attack the slowest and the weakest brain cells first, right? And in this way, and you probably see where this is going now, regular consumption of beer eliminates the weaker brain cells and makes the brain a faster and more efficient machine. And that, Norm, is why you always feel smarter after a few beers. Now, I'm in this weird situation here, and that you can all see me, but you're probably in your bedroom somewhere, and maybe you're having a faint snigger. Let me just tell you, if I tell this to a group of people, they will burst out laughing. It may not be happening to you now. Hope it is, but that was a funny bit, just in case you missed it. Right, okay. Now, where are we here? Oh, so so there's a joke bit there. It just shows the idea of WIP, limiting WIP, all running together. It shows you the idea that the slowest one at the back is the bottleneck. Okay, so when I tell this to software development teams, or actually the one I showed you with the slides, when I, sorry, with the whiteboards there, when I showed it to them, for instance, in a big meeting room, I sit there and I tell them about this and they go, I say, where's your slowest buffalo? They all turn and they all look at the tester because they all knew. They just needed a metaphor and an idea. You go, wow, okay. And then what they do is they work through and they go, if it's a tester, what do we need to go faster? Well, we don't need to do more analysis more quickly. We don't need to speed up development. We need to figure out as a team how we can help the slowest buffalo, the testers, do more testing. And that's the only way we can go faster. And they did that. And I'll tell you a little bit how why. There's a formula in my book, and I'll come to that in a minute. I just want to point out here that generally, if you ask IT people to draw a circle around their system, their team, they draw a circle, but they usually have the customer on the outside. In commercial and other software development, if you're not doing it for a hobby, if you've got a team, you have a customer, they are actually part of your team. So you need to widen your circle. Okay, so that's the first one there. The team includes the customer. Now, 2, when they're not engaged, that's usually a capacity problem. They haven't got enough time. Head of marketing, I've got a job as head of marketing, and as well as being head of marketing, making all sorts of big head of marketing decisions, I've got to go and help out this team and make decisions for them. I don't have time for that. And the marketing people are screaming at me. And often it's a time problem. If they have more time to devote to the team, the outcomes would be a lot richer, a lot better. So they don't have enough capacity, and they end up steering the team. So they don't have enough capacity to steer the team in the right direction. And instead, what they do is they try and take the heat off themselves, like I said before, and they try and keep the team busy. It's kind of a summary of a problem that's almost invisible, but you will know if your customer's not fully engaged. You might be working very efficiently inside your team, but you're heading in the wrong direction. But that's because your customer is the slowest buffalo, and they're the bottleneck. And it's very, very hard to provide good steerage. You've hit the back of a bunch of buffalo, and all you can see is buffalo butts in front of you. Right, moving on, back to the guide, right? So the guide here, that's you in real life, me for you now, says the guide says, I've got a plan of attack for you. You go, well, that's very handy. And here's the plan. The first step is to learn the focus formula. I'll run through this very quickly, but don't forget, go to share.toc.guide. You can get a free copy of the book and read it at your leisure. It takes about an hour and a half or so. Go grab a copy, read it, and then you get much fuller explanation of this. And then once you've read it, you use the focus formula to take your customer, who's the bottleneck at the front, and figure out how to get them more capacity. It's just a bunch of prompts, okay? And then you move to a U-shaped team, which I will gloss over very quickly. And then once you got there, you protect it. If you happen to know the theory constraints, the summary of 3 and 4 is that you strategically need to choose exactly where you want your bottleneck to be. You just don't leave it to chance and then manage the bottleneck where it is. You strategically place it. Otherwise, you go really, really slow, but you're very, 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 very busy at the same time. So here's the focus formula. Right. So the first step is, this is called a backronym by the way. And what you do is you start with a word to come up with a backronym, and you work backwards. So I started with focus because the theory constraints is all about focus. This is about, where do I focus? Where do I look? Where do I put my magnifying glass? Okay. There are so many things that you could do to improve, but unless they're aimed at the bottleneck, the improvements are very unlikely to actually give you good results. Okay, so I started with the word focus and I worked backwards. The first one was a blessing, find. So what's the first thing you want to do? I want to find my bottleneck. That begins with F. F for find. And then you go, found my bottleneck. So let's take the testers. In that whiteboard example, there were 2 testers. You look at them and you go, well, how can we optimize them? How can we just look at them and just what can we do to help them? And we found some ways. We got that. They were actually very, very efficient team. Anyway, there just wasn't enough capacity compared to everyone else in that case. So, but we got rid of 1 or 2 little meetings. Wasn't a great thing. They were already optimized. And then you pop to the 3 C's, and this is where the magic happens, because this is what everyone else can do. Everyone else can help the bottleneck, the slowest buffalo, run faster. Just imagine that the slowest buffalo is at the back of the herd, but he's also, he or she, at the back of the herd is also carrying a whole lot of shopping with them. Maybe the other buffalo in the front, who are faster, can carry some of that shopping and spread it around, and the slowest one will speed up. by analogy. I don't think buffaloes actually carry shopping, as far as I know. Okay, so the first one you do with, let me just see, I should have a little bit of animation here. Yeah, so the first two are for the bottleneck. The next three are what the non-bottlenecks do. Coordination. Got a lovely example. If I pointed that way and walked about half a kilometre, you'd find my kids' school. And on rainy days at the school, they have a coordination problem. What they used to, which is that at 3 o'clock when the kids get out of school, all the mums or dads would turn up in their cars and they block up the traffic, and the entire area around would be blocked up because of this bottleneck outside the school. The whole town would suddenly slow down. So they put a really clever little coordination solution in. They just got the younger 3 years worth of classes, and on rainy days they cut the length of their lunch break and they let them go home early. And the mums and dads know that if it's a rainy day, they should go and pick up their kids early. And I imagine they send out a text message to go with that as well. So what that does is double the time that you can pick up your kids, and it gets rid of the bottleneck. So coordination solutions, you are probably very good at them because you're doing them all the time. Most of Agile is about better coordination. Now, collaboration, also a big Agile thing. You imagine you've got all of these non-bottlenecks, but you've got one bottleneck, just like those testers, right? The bottleneck. Everyone should go collaborate. How can everyone else help collaborate? How can they help? How can they collaborate with the non-bottlenecks to help them out? So in that particular case, one of the things that the developers did is they said, well, why don't we? Because we have to slow down, right? Why don't we own your testing environments, and we'll make sure they're really clean, because you keep bugging us and they have problems. Why don't we just own them, make them clean? Okay, cool. There are a few other things they did, but just ask yourself, you've got spare capacity from the non-bottlenecks. How can they help the bottlenecks do more work? And often that's just handing off work. And it's surprising, sometimes you hand off work from a bottleneck and you discover that other people actually can do it much better. Curate just says, hey, look, I've got work coming in here. Let's curate it so that we carefully choose what we work on in a way that takes into account where a bottleneck is. So if you could, say testing was your bottleneck, you'd look at it and go, well, if we had two solutions here that would keep the customer happy, and one took an awful lot of testing capacity, testing resource, testing time, but the other one didn't, but it took a lot more development time, we'd probably favor the one that took less testing time, because you get more work like that through the system. Okay, now very quickly, upgrade is just like when your PC is going too slow and you go, oh, my PC's so slow, I think I'll upgrade the memory. I'll go and spend a bit of money and I'll upgrade. Or maybe I'll just actually go buy a brand new one. You know, it's getting old, clunky. Upgrade is normally involves getting more of the bottleneck type of resource, and it usually involves spending money, but not always. Sometimes you can borrow it. Who cares? Move on. Studying and strategically. Now, if you have a bottleneck, right, and you speed them up, after a while, they're not going to be the bottleneck, and the bottleneck will move. The really important thing about this is that you don't want to let it happen accidentally. You don't want to be surprised when it moves. You want to proactively look ahead and figure out, where's the bottleneck? Where's it going to move to? Right, we are getting somewhere here. So yeah, start with find. I've already helped you find the bottleneck. It's probably your customer, and if it's not, it's probably testing. And if it's not, somewhere else. And you've already eliminated two. There's not many of that places that compete. So what you do is you focus your magnificent brains as a team on the bottleneck. Ask about, how can we help the bottleneck go faster as a team, right? So this one here, we want more customer time. Really, almost everywhere the bottleneck is a customer. So we want more customer team. And the question is how. And the first thing I want to tell you, don't try and sell them on giving more time. They're already bought into that. It's really obvious. You assume that because they're not giving you much time, or you want more of their time, you have to sell. You don't need to sell. Especially don't sell them on Agile. They don't need to know about stickies and stand-ups and stuff. That's not their problem. You don't need to try and motivate them anymore. usually. And if it sounds like you do, often they're actually covering up for the fact, the real problem, which is that they actually don't have enough time to do the job. So instead of selling them, we're going to make it easier for them to engage. Right, now, let me just really quickly, this here, if you go do this when you get back to work tomorrow, really, really helpful. Most people try and sell. Most people don't even know they have a bottleneck. Most people just blindly go, oh, we can't fix that. It's actually surprisingly easy to fix. So here's a diagram, right? 2x2 matrix. So imagine this is about your customer. There's 4 different areas where there could be, and one's good. So you want them to have high capability. In other words, you want them to be skilled at being the customer of an agile team. You also want them to have high capacity, which just means they have plenty of time. So you want them to have, I got tons of time to do my job and I'm good at it. You got 2 other options there that are less good. One is where they're actually really good at it, but they're also really busy. Another one is that they are in the bottom right-hand corner down here. They've got lots of time, but they're not so good at it. And then there's the worst option, which is where they don't have enough time and maybe they're not good at it. Now, all of them, you do the same process. You look at your bottleneck and you go, right, I found the bottleneck. Is there anything that they could do to optimize themselves? Probably not. They're probably really busy people. They're probably very efficient already. So then you look and go, right, can we coordinate things differently? So I'll give you an example. Government civil servant, very senior civil servant. I helped her because she was saying, I've got these 40 people over there, kicked to money my time. I've got so much to do. It's not that I don't want to help them, I just don't have enough time. And they're so disorganized when they come to me and they're like, oh, my head wants to explode. So what we did is we did 2 things. The first one was coordination. The few things in coordination, I said to her, why don't you just set up a meeting room, next to the team, book a meeting time, 3 days a week, half an hour, right? And let the Scrum Masters know that if they want any time, you'll be there for half an hour on those 3 days. And then if no one turns up, just do your email. If people turn up and you need more time, that's probably a good thing. Book a little bit of extra time. But just make sure that you're available there during that time. And she said, oh, that's all I have to do. That doesn't sound like very much time, an extra 1.5 hours. But it was 1.5 reliable hours. And that was probably twice what the team was already getting. So she booked in that time. But then we made sure that she did the second C, which is collaboration. We made sure that when they turned up, they'd already gone through a lot of the work and they were just presenting often, not they're working like when you do a maths problem, show you're working, they presented and go, look, this is what we've looked at, we'd like your decision, should you do this or this? So they just did prep work, and that's partly a coordination thing. You know, do your prep work before you go spend time with this precious resource, and present stuff to them that you've already thought through. Okay, it's also a bit of curation. So in this case, that transformed that project, and the team went from hating each other to actually really from hating their customer to actually getting quite engaged and enjoying it. And as they did that, a whole lot of decisions got sorted out. They started working together much more quickly. They started heading in the right direction. They discovered a lot of things were actually heading in the wrong direction, so they've got time to straighten things up again. Right. So the focus formula, go have a look at that book. It'll explain it in more detail, but it's really not difficult. It really is. Find the bottleneck and then just run through those steps and just think of examples. If you want to do it, don't even tell people about the focus problem. Just get your team together and say, hey, look, what are we going to do to make it easier for our customer to engage? And that really is the key. Don't try and sell them on Agile or that it'll be better for them. They know that they don't care about Agile. They might pretend they do, but they don't. They've got so much on their plate. All they want you to do is just make it easier for them to interact with you. And if you do that, you will be delighted at how quickly, days, weeks, and probably not months, that things will get better. Right, so that's the plan. Learn the focus formula. You can go do that. And if the customer's a bottleneck, and they probably are, fix that, use the focus formula, move to a U-shaped team. I'm just going to show you that very quickly. That's what it looks like. And all it is that you have strategically placed your developers as a deliberate bottleneck. And if you do that, you will probably go between 4 and 8 times faster. And I can't prove that, but I can show you a fairly convincing argument another time that if they're anywhere else, then you're not going nearly as quickly as you can. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up very quickly here. The whiteboard example, they ended up doing 30% more throughput than they had in the past. They ended up giving 2 developers, 3 developers actually, I think it was, to other projects who could use them because they realized they had too many. That gave them a nice U shape like here because they decreased the developer capacity. They slowed down. Everyone had been doing overtime before, they stopped doing overtime. And at the end of it, I spoke 3-4 months later, I spoke to the manager of that team, and she said, we have never worked so little or done so much or been so calm as we are now. And it's just all because of that stupid joke you told us, right? Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm just going to tell you one other thing. If you don't fix this, right, you'll keep improving and this will get worse. If you keep improving inside the team, but not counting your customer as it, you'll be speeding up the bits that are already fast enough, that aren't bottlenecks. And that will just make things worse and worse and worse. And it will make things angrier and grumpier. Right, and if you do fix it, everything will just go faster in the right direction. And that, my friends, is that. Now I'm at the point where I'm hoping